right, hello. Hi, this is Robert Masters. I am currently getting my master's degree in information systems at Penn State Harrisburg. And I just wanted to showcase one of the projects I've been working on this spring semester with one of my classmates, Xing. We've been learning about a bunch of different stuff, regression models, logistic regression, neural networks, discriminate analysis, forecasting, mostly. All those kind of are buzzwords, but how does that actually apply in the real world? Well, thankfully we were able to get some information from a local Harrisburg business. Xing was working with this photographer, and we were actually able to de-identify a lot of her client information for this project, so we can take a lot of information that we've learned and actually apply it to the real world. So here I wanted to talk about it, wanted to go over a few things. So first we'll talk about the business. So here in Harrisburg we had a maternity and family photographer who she's been struggling with a few different things, which we'll touch on a little bit more, but she really focuses on maternity and family photos. She does photo books, framed photos, albums. Really it's mainly specialized around newborn babies. She does consultation, placement ordering, and then also surveys as well. The issue is really, like we're saying, she hasn't had great growth in sales. It's been pretty constant. Really the only marketing she has is word of mouth. She wants to expand what she already has and kind of improve on the basis of her business. So we took a lot of this information with the hopes of building a few recommendations for her. So we're actually going to take a look at some of those variables. So what we decided to go with was purchasing information, because you can really tell a lot about what types of business. If you want to drive revenue, let's take a look at the variables that affect revenue. So what we were looking at was actual spending as a continuous variable for our regression and forecasting models, and then for discriminant analysis, the neural network, and logistic regression, we decided to use a more binary variable. So that would be whether or not they purchased a complete set. Yes being 1, they purchased the $6,000 set, and 0 being they did not. We took a number of independent variables to run against this. Some of those include whether it was their first baby that they're taking to the photo shoot, the satisfaction score that they assigned to the survey for afterwards, after their shoot, what's their average yearly income as a household, how many babies did they bring, whether or not both parents came to the photo shoot, so was it just the mom or was it just the dad, and then how much time those individuals spent in consultation or ordering, or just in ordering in general, just the whole process, how much time they spent, the importance of family photos with newborn babies, placement details in the home. Now, placement details, to explain this a little bit, what placement details are is whether or not the family had asked the photographer to take a look at their home, where they wanted it, maybe measure the wall and kind of figure out how that might fit into their household. So that's what that is. And then we also have home type, whether or not they were in an apartment or a house. So running all of these independent variables against the dependent variables for our different models, we came up with some very similar results. All of those independent variables came out very significant for the ones that were significant, and all the ones that were not significant were not significant between each of the models for both different dependent variables, because they are explaining very similar things. So that makes sense. So time, household income, if both parents were present, and the placement details, whether or not they elected to have those, were all very significant on spending, for overall spending, and whether or not they purchased the complete set. Things like the satisfaction survey, so how much they like their appointment, how much they value photos, all of that didn't really tell us anything. It was not significant. Number of babies wasn't significant. We also took a look, just to throw in here, mother's age, also not significant. So Considering all this, we'll actually take a look at the research and some of the stuff we did. So, taking a look here at the regression model to start off. There's a number of really cool things to take a look at. First off, I do want to point out the t-statistics here. So, looking at the t-value, we can tell that household income right here, as a measurement of thousands, is explains the most of our model. So, very important, significant variable. Followed by that, we also have time spent, and then the other ones are also pretty significant. These variables, they explain about 42% of the model. That's pretty good considering real-world data and how much time we had. So this is pretty good overall. It explains a good chunk of the factors that relate to whether or not people are purchasing her photos and whether or not they're purchasing a complete set. So we can also take a look at the VIF score here too. So VIF for a number of babies and home or apartment. As we can tell though from the p-value, neither of these values are statistically significant, but the high VIF score shows that these are multicollinear. So what does that really mean? It means the number of babies born is telling us the exact same information as whether or not these people are coming from a house or apartment. And that makes sense. If you have a lot of kids, it's probably a lot more likely that you're going to be in a house, versus if you have no kids at all, or one kid, it's probably more likely that you'd be in an apartment. So yeah, that is the regression model. We'll move on to our, I think, logistic regression next. Yeah, we'll take a look at that. So moving on to the logistic regression, we'll take a look at the training set first because I want to show off the odds ratios here. So again, same thing here. We have the Wald value, pretty much the t-statistic. Unlike household income, we actually found that time spent was the most important factor when it came to spending for purchasing a complete set. So a little bit different in our results here, very similar, but is different. We can tell which values are a bit more important. With the odds ratio and having having a logistic regression model, we can take a look at the odds ratio as well. So I have that over here on the corner, as you can see. I'm actually going to zoom in case this is hard to take a look at. So for household income, we'll start here with household income. We can tell based on the odds ratio that it is 1.83% increase. For every $1,000, there's a 1.83% increase on whether or not they are going to purchase a complete set. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but if you take a look at the t-statistic, or the Wald value in this case, and you also consider the fact that this is just for $1,000 income. Let's say you consider two different people, an administrator making $50,000 a year, and maybe somebody in data science, they're making $100,000 a year. Pretty substantial difference. That's about a $50K difference between $50,000 and $100,000. What does that relate to in an odds ratio? Well, in an odds ratio here, that's about a 93% difference, right? So that's almost double the likelihood of whether or not they're going to purchase a complete set. Moving on to both parents. So for both parents, this is pretty interesting as well. If only one parent comes, it's not going to be very great. But if you're measuring this and you're using and you're taking a look at whether or not both parents are attending, if both parents are present, that's a 139% increase over the base model. Pretty substantial, so both parents does tell us a lot. And then time spent, which is the most significant, or most relevant, I should say, explains the most about the dependent variable. Every hour, it's a 72% increase. So very important stuff. Does substantially increase their likelihood to purchase. And placement details as well. Placement details, 159%. So whether or not they elected to have placement details is very important. We'll take a look at some of the validation sets to see how these models actually predict relative to the data, so we can see how accurate it is. So we trained the neural network set, did pretty well. When we actually validate it, doesn't do quite as well. It is really good at telling us who is not going to purchase based off the classification matrix. It is not so good at telling us who is going to purchase, 53%. Overall, the accuracy, it is better than the base model, or I guess I should say the majority class. So the majority class is just who doesn't purchase. It's around 70%. Still better than that, so it is better than nothing. It does underperform slightly relative to our logistic regression, and that's probably because it could use more data. But with what it has, it is still very good. Logistic regression did outperform it a little bit better. Didn't do quite as well at determining whether or not people were going to purchase. It did a good bit better at saying who wasn't going to purchase. So overall, it had a strong accuracy, 80%. So it was the best model of all the things that we used. We also did discriminate analysis too. So the discriminate analysis was best at telling which customers were going to purchase the model. So that was around 74%. Won't buy though, not very good compared to the others, and its overall accuracy did underperform the majority class. So yeah, the majority class here is 74%. This is just a measurement of how many people did not elect to purchase a full package. So it's about 75%, 74% in this case. So every 3 out of 4 people are not buying. Every 1 out of 4 people is buying. And yeah, how we got that here is just the classification function, coefficients, which I pulled from SPSS. This is just the output from SPSS. In this, I utilized SPSS, NeuralTools, and StatTools. You can also use tools like MATLAB, which I've used before for some of these things as well. But just for a clean output look, I have it here in Excel. So we have all of these things, all of these models. We'll now move on to the last section here, which is forecasting. So we tried a number of different forecast models. We tried using time series regression, which had RSME around 11. Holtz didn't do quite as well. You're not going to be able to see some of these here because I don't have StatTools enabled right now. But what I can tell you is for the Winters model, we did have an RSME around 10, so it was slightly better than the time series model. And you can tell from the original observation that there is really strong seasonality. I mean, we're looking here in 2014, right? $93,000 in Q3 of 2014, and then in Q4 or Q1 of 2015, it's under $9,000, right? Massive drop off. And so she gets a ton of demand right there in the fall mostly, and winter time, where most of the kids are being born. You have a lot of parents coming in for maternity photos. So there's a massive influx of demand around this time, and then completely drops off in the springtime, and then slowly creeps up throughout the summer. So very substantial increase and then drop off in demand. So considering this information, and considering that you have most of your sales in Q3, some still in Q4, but really drops off in Q1, what does that really show us? So taking a look at that, we know that there's super strong seasonality. We know that income, time, whether or not customers elect for placement details, and if both parents are on board are all really important factors on whether or not somebody is going to purchase a complete set or spend more money. So considering all that, we have a number of recommendations that we gave her business and organization. So the first is that really look for prioritizing high value clients, right? So looking at the model here, and again, I'll zoom in a bit. We'll take a look at the original observation, not so much the forecast here, but looking at the original observation, we can see these massive peaks and dips. So peak and dip. So During this time, she's very busy. She has a lot of clients. She doesn't really have time to service everybody. And this is where you start cutting some of the people you know are not going to make you a lot of money. They don't have a lot of disposable income. They're not interested in placement details. Maybe it's just mom, or maybe it's just dad who's interested in going to the photo shoot. You know these people are not going to buy a complete set. They're not going to be worth a lot of money. Doesn't mean drop them off as clients, but it does mean that you would probably be better off pushing them out into the springtime when there's almost no demand at all. So trying to schedule them out further on as clients where there's almost no spending at all for the business. And prioritizing clients who have a lot of money. They're really interested in the process. Time's kind of hard to measure because we do know based off of survey information and stuff like both parents, we can tell from a VIF score that both parents is a very different factor than time, so you can't see that like, oh, if both parents are coming, it means they're really engaged, therefore they're going to spend more time. So those two things are very separate, which you can tell from the VIF. So time is a little bit hard to tell beforehand, but what you can really tell is income, placement details, and if both parents are going to be there, simply just by asking. And that information will help clear who are the high value clients and who are not. And for that, you can really prioritize who's going to make you the most money when it's peak season. You have tons of clients, and trying to prioritize those and put the other ones further down into the beginning of the spring. So another thing is to really market and brand towards higher income clients. We know that income is a really important factor, especially just for overall spending. So having high income clients, marketing towards areas where people have more money to throw at these things, it is kind of simple business, but the data explains that that's one of the most important factors here, and that is the type of clientele she should focus on. And on top of that, some things that are a little bit more nuanced and not so obvious is things like placement details. Trying to get customers a little bit more engaged in the process, maybe offering some type of free visit to their home to take a look at placement details and maybe where they want it on the wall and things like this. This stuff is really important because it is one of the most important factors for determining whether or not a client's going to purchase a complete set and how much they're going to spend. So trying to get them on board for that is really important. Getting both parents on board as well. If she's just contacted by the dad or the mom, it's really important to try and get the other parent on board, and especially getting the other parent present to the photo shoot means more money, means making more money, having more revenue, as well as the likelihood of purchasing a complete set. So with all that in mind, these are all great recommendations, we think, for helping her to boost her bottom line and push revenues further to hopefully get higher net worth clients and increase demand in her spring season. So thank you. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment or reach out to me directly. Really appreciate it. Thanks so much.